created a controversy because she called herself black on TV. She's white with blonde hair and whatever, and she stated that she had African ancestry. And like I said, the slave trade is not just a black and white thing; it's also mixed race. Just like a good portion of African American history is mixed race history. People don't want to say it, but this is a fact. This is true. Pressure to make people invisible when they do not fit in one single box. The problem is that we are here, but we don't exist. I am for the recognition of the mixed race group.
Hi, I'm Danielle Romero. Thank you so much for being with me here on my channel where we talk about American identity and family stories. And wow, I am so excited to bring Victoria on today. We're going to talk about a term that is new to me. It's called multi-generational mixed. And I'm going to let Victoria explain her take on this. She has written a bunch of books on this. I think they're all in French. Multi-generational mixed, I think, is a really important term to wrestle with, especially for Americans. Although Victoria is not an American, and I'm really looking forward to hearing her perspective on this. But this idea that people are half of this, half of that, and that definitely happens, but it's not as frequent as this kind of mixed pot of heritage and ancestry that most of us come from. And it's interesting to see that being termed in this whole new way, because the old way of the old terminology was like black or Negro or white or mulatto. And it was these designations of like, you are 100% white or 100% non-white, or you're half and half like a cookie. And that's not really the reality for most people. And the world is becoming even more mixed. And so I'm looking forward to talking about what is multi-generational mixing and how does that affect our identity and the way we see ourselves as Americans or citizens of the world. If you would like to watch these ad-free off of YouTube, you can join me on my Patreon at NYTN. Otherwise, let's go say hi to Victoria.
Okay, so my name is Victoria Kabeya. Victoria Kabeya, maybe in the American accent. And I am a Belgian French historian. It's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure.
I know it's dinner time, and like to me, I hate missing dinner. I love having
No,
everything
it's
else.
actually it's only 5 p.m. over
Okay.
here.
Okay.
So I'm gonna eat in probably 2 to 3 hours.
Okay. Oh, are you a night owl too? Do you stay up late?
Yeah.
Me too. That's
Hmm.
when I do my best thinking at night.
Right. In French, we say something like "La nuit porte conseil," and it means that your ideas are better at night.
I do not feel great in the morning. Like I used to wake up really early, and it didn't work for me to be like wake up at 5 a.m., try to get stuff done. Like
Right.
I don't know. I wanted to be that person and I am not. I keep hearing this term now and I always think of you when I hear multi-generational mix.
My family history, my family background is actually diverse because it's tied to the slave trade, immigration, and colonization. So my father had a Congolese father, and his mother was from Ghana. But I also descend from Caribbean and African American returnees who went back to West Africa. So that's why I have this mix over there. And my mother, on that side, we were the victims of the Arab slave trade and the Indian Ocean slave trade. So I have East African, a little bit of Congo, and Middle East and Sicilian heritage, but it's not tied to the slave trade. It's immigration and whatever. So I'm kind of mixed. I'm a mixed person.
Kind of.
Kind of. I am for the recognition of the mixed race group.
Mhm.
And I was tired of people not understanding what I was, what my mother was, or whatever. So it was important for them to understand that being biracial is not the only way of being mixed. If all biracials are mixed, not all mixed people are biracial. And when you come from societies like us, post-slavery societies, post-colonial societies, you are the product many ways of branches, mixed race branches that intermarried over time. So you had different section in the mixed race group. So a MGM person, multi-generationally mixed person, is whether they're white or black, they are, when it comes to the MGM black people, they can be defined as having a strong African DNA core, but they also descend from mulattoes. So they're also multiracial. And when it comes to the MGM whites, they are European, but they descend from also Afro lineages and non-white lineages through several generations.
Mm.
And they both have the particularity of coming from post-slavery societies. And they are unable to pinpoint to a direct black or white ancestor because they descend from mixed race people. And within the MGM white group, according to the sources that I have, white North Africans, white Middle Easterners, some Sicilians, some Southern Europeans, even the Jews today, they are part of this group.
Mm.
And when it comes to the MGM black, a great portion of the Caribbeans, some Latinos, Afro Latinos, and some Black Americans also belong to this branch. So, and most MGM Black people, they were raised in the Black side.
Right. Yeah.
Most of them
I love,
culturally.
because I feel like there's this fiction here in the US that I know that you're familiar with, this idea that you have to be black or white, or you are black or white, or that's
Mhm.
how you're being seen. And I don't think that's not to say that there aren't immense different cultural experiences like in different communities here, because there are. There are. And a lot of it is based on how your family looks and where how that settles. But this idea that you could have what you're saying, MGM people who are white or black, and they both have this slavery and enslaved ancestors, I think it is the most bittersweet, beautiful part of the story. That there's
Absolutely.
this shared, not that it's a beautiful experience, but there's a shared experience, a profound one that, you wouldn't be here without it. And yet you have people coming down off these branches and not all looking the same. In my mind, I don't know if you would consider her this, but anytime I think about MGM, like celebrity, for some reason, I just think about Mariah Carey. Like, I loved Mariah Carey when I was a little girl. I loved Mariah Carey. Is she MGM? Is that a representation of like what you would consider MGM here in the US,
Okay.
or?
So, and I'm gonna answer. I love Mariah too, and I'm so happy that you mentioned her because there's a huge confusion when it comes to her background. Mariah Carey says my father was black, my mom is white. Actually, her father is mixed race, and she is a closer to a quadroon than a biracial. She's like because her father was from Venezuela and from he was Black American, so he was the biracial one.
Hmm.
She's the quadroon. So she's a quadroon who is socially biracial, if I can say so. A MGM white person would be Danielle, the Dominican American singer. I'm thinking about in Love and Hip Hop, you had a girl. Her name was Veronica Vega. I don't know if you see her. Love and Hip Hop Miami, Veronica Vega, and she's of Cuban and Venezuelan ancestry. She created a controversy because she called herself black on TV. She's white with blonde hair and whatever, and she stated that she had African ancestry. If you see her family, there is no black person, there's no biracial person, but she descends from lineages of mixed race people, mixed white people who intermarried over time. It's just like me, let's say, having 10 generations of ancestors who are like you. So mixed race white people who intermarried over time. If I do a DNA test, I'm probably going to be 20-25% African without having one black ancestors in direct black ancestor in my lineage. So an MGM white person is a white person, European, who also happens to be mixed race because they descend from mixed people intermarried over time.
Mm.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
Mariah Carey is a quadroon, I would say.
I haven't heard that quadroon.
Sorry, I'm sorry because over here in Europe we use this.
Yeah, and here in
That's
the
the
US,
home.
I mean, I'm used to it just from reading records and stuff, but I feel like
Yeah.
some people be like, and it's a rabbit hole to go down. Crazy designation, but it was so specific because that's how it was. Like there had to be these specific things. Um, you said something really interesting. When I started my journey, I wasn't sure if I go down to Louisiana and what will my family look like? Who I find? I don't know.
Mhm.
I go down and people kept telling me before I went down, like, you just need to go find your black side of the family. They'll tell you what happened. I go down, like, people look mixed, but I'm like, there's no like, and here's your 100% African uncle. Like that's not what happened. I go down, everybody's mixed. People are all different shades. You can tell that everyone's mixed, but it's like, the more I study the records, I'm like, this has been going on basically the whole time. It's been 5 generations of people labeled as mulatto, marrying people labeled as mulatto.
But you know what, Danielle, I'm going to tell you something. What you said is true, but it's even worse because in Southern Europe, you have many more MGM white people than you can think of. Do you want to know why? Because the slave trade also took place there. So you have millions of Sicilians, Southern Spaniards, Portuguese. They descend from enslaved Afro people,
Mm.
and they don't know this. So you have actually in the South multiracial white people. They don't know this. And that's the reason why I believe that we need to create new categories in the mixed group because if you know what you are in terms of mixed heritage, you know where to go. You know how to define your family. And this is the thing that's missing, the lack of vocabulary, the lack of knowledge, the lack of transmission. And we need to redefine this.
Tell me, is that something that you just accepted like right out of the blocks? Because I know for me, I've had to wrestle with this, just the way that we're taught to look at each other versus the reality of our heritage.
I, to answer your question, I'm speaking for me personally, it's been extremely hard. For the past decade, it was extremely hard because I still have a hard time uh understanding that I am the descendant of enslaved people. If I am the way I am, it's because crazy things happened. I'm talking about SA at the you understood. So it was extremely difficult for me to be the product of so many contradictions, especially when we live in a world where it's only black or white. And I've watched your videos about your Sicilian ancestry because I'm also attached to my Sicilian and Sardinian heritage. And when you come from the Mediterranean area, you are not necessarily what you look like because of the blendings and the multiracial foundations of the area. You have black Africans, you have Afro-Asiatics, white people. It created a new people with new cultures and whatever. And I've never understood why it was so difficult for people to understand that you can be a white person with African ancestry and an Afro person with European ancestry. You and I were both mixed. You look the way you look, but you descend from Afro people as well. The same way I descend from Sicilians and Sardinians, but it doesn't necessarily show. So that's why I've always fought against this idea of putting people in boxes. And this is a fight that I also have with Central Africans and other Africans from, the other parts of the continent because they come from areas where they never had this openness that North Africans or East Africans had since ancient times.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's difficult to understand our position, but yes, it is what it is. We are what we are.
Yeah, and I love it. I feel like it just flies in the face of this division along a very
True.
binary thing.
Mm,
And I'm like, let's dump it. Like I'm ready to be done with it. I think we really need to be done with it.
true. I
And yeah,
agree.
It's it's doing a lot of harm, and I love how much more we can learn about our family stories, like you're saying, when we accept all of it. And you're right, there are a lot of, like you were saying, the contradictions are there, these terrible
Oh
things
my
are there,
God, yes.
but you're here, you're sitting here with me, and we're talking, and like, I don't know, it's a beautiful, important thing to sit with. Are there misconceptions you have had to correct a lot for people, or
The problem is that we are here, but we don't exist. We are here with no music because we are erased. We've been erased. On the black side, they're gonna tell you, no, you're black. If you don't have a white parent and a black parent, you're black. No, I mean mixed and mixed makes mixed. Okay, so on the people like me, we are erased and we're just blacks. And people like you, they exist, but they are just white as well. And I've read a few articles by Jewish women, whether they were Ashkenazi Jews, especially Arab Jewish women. And they stated that no, I am not a white person, I am a Jew, and we are made of different things as well. But it seemed like what they were saying was not taken into account because there's this constant pressure to make people invisible when they do not fit in one single box. And like I said, the slave trade is not just a black and white thing, it's also mixed race. Just like a good portion of African American history is mixed race history. People don't want to say it, but this is a fact. This is true.
but when you're talking about the returning enslaved African Americans here, and I've researched a little bit about like um, people being sent back, but I don't know a ton about that, and I'm fascinated. Have you found connections or DNA cousins or anything to people back in the States on those lines, or like, what do you know about those people who went back?
I know that when it comes to my ancestors, they went back to Sierra Leone.
Okay.
There were Jamaican and Cubans and African Americans from the South, Mississippi, Alabama, etc. And what I'm planning to do is travel to Ghana because my great grandfather on my father's side, the Ghanaian one, the Ghanaians, they keep the records, the birth records and whatever. And I just want to explore it and go back in time to find the names
Mm-hmm.
and then try to see if I can see a connection over there in the US or in the Caribbean. I don't know. But this is what I'm planning to do. And maybe doing a DNA test could probably help me find some relatives over there. I don't know. But
Wow.
yeah. Mm.
Wow, that's like incredible. If you ever come over here, let me know because I'm in.
Oh, thank you.
Well, we can grab a coffee or something. I would love to see you.
So I do not understand why we're still trying to erase uh mixed people, mixed identity, mixed raceness. No, it exists. So that's my answer.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yes, it does. I'm assuming based on my experience that you've had some pushback on this.
all the time. I've got many times, and what's even more complicated for me is that a huge part of my blackness comes from the Arab world.
Mm,
So this is even more complicated. It's still on my mother's side. Uh, the thing that protects me is that I know my ancestors and I've learned how to be really into the cultures that my ancestors were from. I stay firm on claiming the Africanness that I have, but also the non-Africanness that I can have. I'm not gonna reject the Sicilian blood that I have because it can make a person uncomfortable. No, this is what I am. And fear is also a thing that blocks people like us, prevents them from claiming what they are. They are scared. Many of us, we were traumatized by European rejection. We've been rejected by white Europeans. And this created a kind of trauma. So that's why we stick to the black side. But we know that we are also other and we are afraid to come out. We have to come out. and not feel afraid, not be afraid, and embrace what we are. Being mixed doesn't make you any less a lover of Africa. You're just mixed. It's okay.
Mm.
So I don't know.
No, I agree. I want to go back, and I'm glad that you said it this way. SA, I'll put it in the bottom text for people so they know. But we know when we're talking about the slave trade, especially here, things I've researched in the US, a lot of that mixing people will point and say, well, I don't want to embrace it because I
True.
know where it came from, or they think
Mm.
they know where it came from. Can you speak on that and maybe how you've wrestled with that?
It's difficult because on my father's side, they are black, but made of different branches of black. But I also have, because of the slave trade, British, Scottish, and Irish blood. I know because what they did. It's horrible to force a person to claim uh, the blood that was inherited from something that was so horrific. But what I'm telling my brothers and my sisters who refuse to claim it because of the essay, I'm not forcing them, but you can also recognize that I am culturally black. My identity is black, but I also recognize that I'm mixed race. That's it.
Mm,
Um, and we also need to talk about this problematic of being, I don't know how to say this, but living with the scars in our bodies, in our veins of the essay. Because a black person, a full-blooded black person, is still traumatized by the slave trade and the brutality that they endured. But for people like us, it's worse because we're living with it. We cannot escape it. It's in our blood. So we also need to share our stories and help each other uh, accept something that we never really chose as well. So it's very complex, and we need more discussion about this.
mm.
You see? Mm.
I like how you said that. And I think like in closing, it reminds me, I guess, of just the whole point is just bringing people together, finding places to heal. And we cannot change what happened. There's no way. But so like we can change how we interact with ourselves and with each other. How, or do you think talking about MGM, using this kind of terminology, can this bring healing that we don't have?
Me, for example, when I read about the term MGM, I felt understood immediately. I felt understood. I said, "Oh my God, this is what I am." Because I had such a hard time explaining people what I was. And I felt that, okay, I'm not about racial. I can understand about racial, but this is not what I am. I am something else. So it helped me understand who I was. And just being able to understand what you are in your specificity, to me, this is going to help a person heal. Just to know how to situate yourself, how to place yourself in a post-colonial world, you know? This is a huge victory. And a lot of us, we don't know who we are. We don't.